little record button so that this webinar is going to be recorded today. So those that were not able to make it will be able to. People are still jumping on, but we are just going to go ahead and get this party started. So a little bit before we get started, I know you guys are all muted, and that's really just to prevent any interruptions that we have during this webinar. At the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see where it says chat. So we want you guys to be really interactive during this webinar because you guys know me. I love interactions in my classes. I love all of that. And so when we do a webinar, it's a very one-way conversation. But we really want you guys to get as much out of this webinar as possible. So if you have questions or whatever it is, you can either raise your hand or you can put a little something in a little chat because we're going to be monitoring that throughout this webinar. Okay. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a little link. So if you guys, if there's questions that you have and you just have so many that you're going through, then at the end of this webinar, we're going to have a little link that you guys can schedule a 30-minute session with either Erin or myself. And so then that will be also complimentary as well. But really just the biggest thing is for you guys to be here, be with us now, kind of settle the distractions all around you. And then, as we're going through the training and the little chat box, we're going to be monitoring that and going through this. So just really making sure that you guys are asking questions. And I just had a little hi to everybody so you guys can see exactly where it is. Did you get that one, Erin?
Yep, got it.
Nice. So in the next hour, what we're going to be going over is really discovering that the 3 keys to breakthrough leadership. We're going to be identifying your areas of growth and development as a leader in your organization. And we're also going to be looking at who you're going to need to be inside of this role.
So we're going to give you a little bit of background about each of us here in a minute, but we also wanted to introduce you to a few of the ways that we can support you on your journey to breakthrough leadership. Amy and I created this program because too often people are thrown into a leadership role without any formal training. And we really are expecting these leaders to either know what to do instinctively or to learn on the job. And a lot of our clients are out there looking for this little bit of extra training to help them be as successful as possible. So in order to help you take what you learn from this webinar and put it into action, we offer leadership and life coaching on a one-on-one basis. And we also have a 2-day leadership intensive program called Power Up Your Leadership happening in San Diego in January that we're really excited about to help you dive in deeper to some of these challenge areas. And like Amy mentioned, we're also offering a 30-minute complimentary strategy session for any of you that are on the call with us today, just to put some of these learnings into action.
Nice. Hi, Chelsea. We got some more people that are coming on board. Darla and Warren. Hi, everyone. Just want to give little shout outs to everybody. Sorry, Erin. I'm over here paying attention to my people. All right. So those who do not know me that's on the call today, my name is Amy Carter. I'm founder of Empowering You Consulting and also co-owner of Solaris Salon and Spa in Evansville, Indiana. So for you guys, I have a remote team that's all throughout the United States with Empowering You. And then I have a brick and mortar business that has a team inside those walls. And I have learned thousands of lessons on really how to lead a team to produce results that the company and myself was really needing. So when I was 22, I decided to become a leader. But honestly, as you guys all know, I was not a leader. I was more of just the owner and somewhat of a manager, kind of stumbling through my days. My background was accounting, but I really had no idea what leadership really meant, or owning a business meant I had to lead people as well. My dream was to own my business at 22, but really not knowing what all of that really encompassed. So when I said yes to being that owner at 22, I said yes to also personal and professional journey. I got my lessons really early in life. And can I say it's really kind of been a roller coaster? I mean, I'm here today to share with you guys how did I lead a team through closing of a business, reopening it, making it over $1 million business, being gone at least 80% of the time because I'm out and about with you guys, as you guys know that. And now leading a whole nother team and a whole different dynamic in a remote way. So really, I want to share with you today. I think Erin said it. Why we created this program is, how do I get to do what I do? How did I create the results that I created? And what did it take from me? My coaches taught me, what are the keys to success in this leadership. And that's really what I share with you today, is like what took me so many years to figure out and really give you the roadmap to your leadership. So that's a little bit about me. How about you, Miss Erin?
Yeah, my name is Erin Daver. Nice to meet all of you remotely. I want to join Amy in welcoming you all here again. We're so happy that you're here, and I'm really excited that you've all taken this initiative to really start taking your leadership to the next level. It's really something that I'm passionate about, and I come from a very corporate background. I'm a CPA, and I started my career at one of the biggest firms in the world, and spent a few years there before moving into a finance role. Super exciting, right? But I had great jobs and I was living in a beautiful city here in San Diego, and from the outside, everything seemed awesome. But on the inside, I was really miserable. And I turned to coaching to really help me find what I was passionate about and find myself again. And so now I coach and train people like you, owners and managers, to take their leadership to the next level so that they can ultimately have the personal and professional success that you're looking for.
Yay.
I do that. Yeah. What'd you say, Amy?
I said, yay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so ultimately, I want to just have you guys walk away today with some of the tips and tricks that I've picked up along my journey to getting here, owning my own business, and building trainings and things like that, so that you can hopefully avoid some of the mistakes that I've seen other people make.
She's referencing to the mistakes that I made. No, I'm kidding, Erin.
All right, so we're going to dive in here to sort of the meat of our content here today. So I think it's valuable to start this conversation by getting us all on the same page. Like, what do we mean when we say power up your leadership? Um, Leadership is such a buzzword lately. It really is everywhere. But, what does that mean? And more importantly, what does that look like? We want you to leave this webinar with an understanding of leadership, but also an understanding of where you are and where you want to go as a leader. And have you have some actionable steps that you could put into action in your business right away. So insights are great, but the key is really putting it into action. So what is leadership? Leadership is not simply telling people what to do or lighting a fire under people. It's not about driving others or coercing people to follow you. But instead, leadership really is lighting a fire in people, supporting them to achieve their goals, and also compelling them to join you in achieving those goals of the company. Ultimately, it's about inspiring others towards the big vision of your company. So let's start by identifying some of those leaders in your organization and also whether you qualify as a formal leader or an informal leader. So what does that mean? Our formal leaders are those people in your organization who have a leadership title. They're also likely the decision makers, and they have the ability to influence the course of other people's careers through feedback or performance reviews and hiring and firing. Basically, they're the boss. Our informal leaders are those people in our organization who don't necessarily have that management title, but don't think that they don't have influence in your company. These people are your ringleaders, so to speak. And in the salon industry, this might be somebody like your senior stylist who have some seniority, but ultimately they're considered a peer to the rest of the team. Here's the big thing that you need to know about this, formal versus informal leaders. Just because somebody is a formal leader doesn't mean that they're doing it right or being most effective. And just because somebody's an informal leader doesn't mean that they can't make a big impact in your company. So, for example, in your company, have you ever been in a situation where somebody in a formal leadership role or in a somebody in a position of influence is trying to get you to do something? They want you to boost your sales or, get new clients, whatever it is, and you don't believe in their vision, or even worse, you don't believe in that person. I imagine that you weren't very eager to work towards those goals and probably not very motivated. In my experience, those people who don't believe in the leader can even sometimes band together and purposely not achieve those goals because they don't have the respect for that formal leader. So maybe you've even been in that position as a manager where you're leading, doing the best that you know how to do, but really not getting any results, and you're not sure why. That's a great place to look too at who are your informal leaders and are they on board with your vision? And we're going to get back into that a little bit later. But really, this can make or break your organization. You've got to identify those leaders, both formal and informal, and develop them both.
Yeah, Erin, if I can add something here, it's like I have for my salon, I have some of the master stylists and really lead stylists in my salon. And so many times, my newbies are looking up to them. And I've said over and over, like, either you guys like it or not, you're leaders, and I think that's, until we were really going through, digging through the stuff and getting it, it's like that informal leaders, they just naturally get there sometimes because of the position they are, because I have my newer talents looking up to my senior stylist. And so I think that's something for all of us on the call to look at for my salon owners is, looking and seeing, those informal leaders, those are your senior stylists. Those are the people that are doing mentorship programs throughout your organization. And it's so important that we have them on the same vision as us because they really have a huge impact on all of your employees and their actions.
Definitely. So we're going to take a quick poll here. We'd just like to see who's on the call and sort of where you fall in the organization. So go ahead and select, are you an informal leader or a formal leader in your organization? And again, that means a formal leader is somebody who's, an owner or you have a management title. And an informal leader, maybe you don't have that management title yet, but you're working on it, or that's part of the goal.
All right, guys, we got about half of you voted, so go ahead and get in there, get your vote in. Let us know, are you the formal leader or informal leader? I see a lot of you guys on here are going to be the formal leaders. But look and see, who are you inside of your organization? Wow, looks like we have mostly formal leaders on this call today.
Nice.
Is there anybody out there that's informal? Anyone? We got just a couple more people that haven't voted. Are any of you that have not voted, are you by any chance that informal leader? No, looks like they're all going to be formals today, Erin.
All right.
Well, today I really coach and train my team to be unstoppable in their business, really from behind the chair. But not very long ago, there was this huge gap in my own leadership, like I shared with you guys earlier. I really had no idea how to inspire my team and really quiet the drama. When I say quiet the drama, I'm talking about my break room, right? So I had to learn this huge lesson to manage the task and really lead the people, right? So management is doing things right, and leadership is really doing the right things. So management is like being more task oriented, process focused. I know a lot of people on the call today, we're great doers, would you say? The easy thing is to manage, but the biggest challenge is learning that secret sauce of how to lead your teams. So leading is empowering and being more people oriented. So a couple of questions I have for you guys to really reflect on is think about this for a minute. How can you learn more about your team and their strengths? How does your team tick? And what really motivates your team? So I'm going to ask those again because I really want you on the call today to really think about this. How can you learn more about your team and their strengths? How does your team really tick? And what really motivates your team? It really took me falling down on my knees to be willing to look at myself, to get that checkup for the neck up. I had to be willing to do the work on myself to see my business grow. It's that emotional intelligence that was the big key for me. I had to learn to grow this team that had a common vision of my companies. So for both companies, I have to recruit, I have to retain the employees that really understands my vision and can be a part of it. Not only that, but I really have to learn how to connect in with my team. This poll's just making my computer go all wacky. Oh my gosh, we have an informal leader in the house. That's what the poll just told us. Thanks,
Nice.
everyone. So the poll has closed, and it looks like we have one informal leader. So whoever it is, welcome. You can put in the little chat who you are, but we're excited you're here.
Cool. So throughout the rest of this hour, we'd really invite you to start looking for places where you can improve and make some movement in your leadership or the leadership in your organization. It's really important for us to look at where we currently are and where we want to go. So for our informal leader, know that you really do have the ability to make change in the organization. And for those formal leaders out there, our majority, let's start looking at how you can better develop your informal leaders and also where you can improve as the formal leader in the organization. You can think of it kind of like Google Maps. Where am I now and where am I trying to go? And what is the path that is the best route to take for me to get there? Basically, we're going to take a look too at what actions that involves to get you there. So where do you need to grow as a leader? I want you to think for a minute, what is that area in your leadership where if you made some strides in the next year, it would make a huge difference in your organization. There's probably a couple places where we can all grow, but I'd encourage you just to pick, one or two that would make the biggest impact and start focusing on that.
So I'd love for you guys to share that in a little chat. Like, where's the areas that you know that you need to really work on inside of your leadership?
Yeah, and here's our wheel of leadership, and we're going to dive into this in a lot more detail during that 2-day power up session in January. But this should hopefully give you some areas to look and to consider, where you're at as a leader, if you're, not coming up with any ideas and areas for growth. So we're going to be focusing on these 4 categories towards the top today: team development, communication, strategic planning, and decision making. But here's all these other areas too, good places to look. So we're going to have you do a quick exercise today on our call. We'd love for you to look at each of these 8 areas of leadership and rate yourself. How are you doing in each of these areas? So just a simple rating from 0 to 10 of how you think you're doing. And if you're looking at this and any of them stick out and feel like they're not applicable to your role in the organization, feel free to change that and make it something that really does apply to what you're doing. So go ahead and just take a look at each of these, rate yourself from 0 to 10, and don't worry about it if the score is low. I actually think that that's a great opportunity for development, and we can't grow and change if we don't identify first where we're at. So simply think of it as a starting point. And any of those areas where you score yourself lower than you'd like to be, that's also a great place to put some structures into place. Maybe get supported by the rest of your team or maybe a coach. I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
So today we're going to share with you the 3 of our tips to this breakthrough leadership. So you can see that we're going to be focusing on those top areas of that wheel. We're going to talk about the importance of owning your role in the organization and also creating that culture that you want, because this really does impact all the areas of your leadership. but really is designed in making the decisions and really creating that strategic planning. So, the purpose today, we're not going to be talking about your company strategy, but we're really going to be looking at how you can really lead your team and how you can involve them in some of the decision making. We'll be looking at how to communicate with your team to inspire them, to grow them, and really stretch them. And how can you make that more efficient through delegation? And also spending time as if it was money. I love that piece. So if you guys can just write down that, I think it's a really golden nugget here is spending time as if it was your money. We're going to be focusing on these three areas that's going to cause the most heartaches. We notice this is like the biggest heartaches for our clients in hopes that you can avoid some of the common missteps on your way to this huge breakthrough inside of your leadership.
So this is one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, and it's one that I share with my clients pretty often. It says, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Leadership really is about impact. And as a leader, it's really important to remember that the people on your team and really anybody that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, they're looking up to you. So that energy and the attitude that you bring into the workplace and to your day-to-day really does set the tone for everybody around you. And how we show up as leaders really is just critical. So I'd like you to think of a time when you've worked for a leader maybe who was frantic or stressed out all the time, or maybe someone who was constantly busy and unapproachable or always complaining. Think about how that impacted you. How did that make you feel? And more importantly, how did that impact your ability to grow and develop as an individual? I've been there. And in fact, when I think about it, I've left every job that I've ever quit in my life, I left because of a poor leader who wasn't developing me and investing in me, and somebody that I really felt like I couldn't work with. I remember the impact of being really stressed out myself, and I was afraid to ask questions, just overall not a good work environment. But I'm sure you've also had the opportunity to work for some leaders who were amazing at what they did. And I imagine that your experience was different then. So think about that. How was that different for you? I imagine that you were, much more inspired to grow and try new things and able to ask questions, basically getting all the support and encouragement that you needed. So this is our first key to generating that breakthrough in your leadership, is knowing what that impact is. So you really can't change something that you aren't aware of. You don't know what you don't know. So this is why this is one of the most important steps, I think. The only way that you can make positive changes in your leadership is by acknowledging where you're at. So if you look back on your last, 2 weeks, couple of months, however far back you want to look, how have you been showing up? Are you more frequently showing up stressed and short-tempered, or are you empowered and excited and understanding and ready to develop your people? And invite you to consider also what did and didn't work with those leaders that you've worked with in the past, like we discussed on the previous slide. And that way, you've got an opportunity to choose powerfully what kind of leader you want to be from here on out. This is the big one, people. Once you identify how you show up, then the next step is really just to own it. Hopefully this discussion so far has gotten you thinking. Once you know what that impact is, it's really time to start owning yourself as a leader all the time. And so this means starting to be more intentional about how you show up, checking your problems and stresses at the door, as they say, and really showing up powerfully to lead our teams. And it also means that you should celebrate when things go well and when your team succeeds, and learn from any mistakes that might happen. I think that's important to really acknowledge that it's not always going to go well, but if you can learn from it and clean it up, if you notice that you're not showing up powerfully for your team lately, know that you can draw that line in the sand today and start showing up differently from here on out and really start making that impact.
So we've talked a little bit about your vision, inspiring your team to following your team towards that big vision that you have. So one of the keys to being an effective leader is your ability to see your eye on the big picture and really not getting caught up in doing part of the leadership. Of course, there's going to be tasks that we know need to be completed on our day to day. I decided that I'm going to die with things on my to-do list. I've just decided that. It's just going to be it. I know in my heart of hearts, I will die with a to-do list. But the thing about breakthrough leadership is that you can get things done while you're leading your team. There's just another way that we can really be responsible for how we show up. So it's not just in our attitude, but also in how we're going to spend our time with our team. As a leader, we really need to keep our big picture in sight. It's going to help us really make the decisions about our leadership and that big culture that we're going to be creating. It says, it's like the path. It's a path that keeps us in that bird's eye view up above everything. It helps us be that proactive leader that really keeps us from above the clouds. So I don't know about you, but how many of you guys spend most of the time in this maze, right? It's like in the maze and really not taking the risk of falling into so many tasks we do. We're so reactionary throughout our day. Our days are just like a revolving door of our team and all their breakdowns and drama and whatever the flavor of the day is, right? But if you're able to stay present to that big picture, you can even be more easily effective by leading your team to the victory, to the big goal. I know that's kind of like being able to see the issues before they become into big breakdowns and also see opportunities for development and growth in your star team and those members. So, just kind of like a side note for those who are those informal leaders, because I think we have one on the call today, but you have a team of them. It's about developing those informal leaders. This is one of the key shifts that's going to take place for the new supervisors. Those who just want to be moving up, they want to move up from being just an individual contributor into your organization. These leaders likely have not been responsible for the big picture yet, but they need to practice really owning this part of their new role as well. We want you to get above this big maze and start looking at your clear vision, looking at that big picture. So the questions for I want you guys to really think about is, like, why are you in business? And why did you start it? And what are you really trying to create here? What is your goal that your team is working on? If you're not going to be clear here, I can promise you that your team isn't clear either. It's important that you get your buy-in from the team on that big picture. They need to believe in your vision. If not, they're not going to follow you. And what are your team's personal goals? This is a great time to sit down with your team and really look and see what are their goals. And what do you want from them by being part of this big picture that you have? Change really comes from identifying where you are inside that maze or that hamster wheel and knowing how in the heck you're going to get yourself out of it.
And like Amy said, once you get your team on board with your vision, they've got to also be on board with you. So it's really about striving to be that leader that you would follow. And what does that mean? I think it means that you're inspiring to your team, but also firm. You want to be approachable, and you really want to allow your team's voice to be heard. Relationships really are the key to breakthrough and effective leadership. And also start to think about, what do you need to do to bring your best self to work consistently? How many of you out there know that you could really just use a recharge or a fresh start, like a clean slate to get refocused and get a clearer understanding of your plan? I know I could use that. I think we all could as business owners. So that's something too you could look forward to in our 2-day program coming up in January.
So number 2 is communication. This is big, huge right now. So everybody hold on to your seat. So I want you to think of a time when you had a conversation that completely went flat. What was the impact of that conversation? And what did you have to do to resolve it? Or did you even attempt to resolve it? How many times you guys been like, oh crap, that definitely didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But then we just kind of ignore it. So have you ever noticed how you communicate to one person, and if you communicate the exact same message to a different person, you get a completely different reaction from the other person? Why is it that people react so differently to the exact same message? Communication, this is going to be the most important trait for a leader, is to really learn how to communicate effectively in both the spoken and the written word. I know for my salon, I'm like totally putting boundaries around text messaging. How a text message can be looked at so wrong. It's astonishing to me sometimes. Communicating confidently is essential if you're going to be successful, no matter what role that you're going to be playing in. Whether you're a salon owner, manager, service technician, whatever that role is, communication will have a huge effect on your overall success. That effective communication is going to help you be heard. It's going to help you get your message out to your team members, your customers, your coworkers, really everybody. And, it becomes more of a two-way street. We talk so much about 8% of our success is by the way we communicate it, and only 20 is by our technical success, right? So when you guys start working on having better communication skills, you're not only going to get your point across, you'll be able to understand others, you can hear them differently, you can address their concerns and manage their expectations all at the same time. I promise you that individuals, really those individuals that communicate confidently, ultimately are building better relationships with the internal and external customers and really have an enhanced personal satisfaction. So let's look at some consistent communication here. Some things that you can be doing is doing your check-ins, so doing those regular planning meetings, your annual meetings, which I know a lot of you on the call here today, I'm sure you have it scheduled because we're at the end of the year, so we have an annual meeting coming up. And also just taking time to gauge the temperature of your team. Are they still on you like the bird? On board with what we have talked about earlier? It doesn't have to be a long check in, like just 5 minutes is fine. It can really have a huge impact and so valuable than just, even the 1 hour meetings, right? 5 minutes can make a huge difference in their day. Looking and taking time for evaluations and feed forward, right? Make it actionable and specific. I want you to be crisp and clear in your communication with them. And you can also use different mediums to communicate with your team, like a Facebook group. So, how many of you guys on here think about like what are different ways you can communicate with your team? The biggest thing is don't be too busy being busy. Give yourself and your team time to connect and to communicate. So, looking at this, here's some really cool tips to be more effective in your communication. So, the first one is this: authentic communication is key. Finding that sweet spot between appropriate and authentic. You don't want to be too bold or too harsh.
Yeah, I love that. Like Amy said, really about keeping it real. I think we have a tendency sometimes to fall into like office speak using terminology or, for those of the ladies on this call, not to stereotype, but one of the things that we do is like downplay what we're trying to say and we'll put qualifiers on it. For instance, saying, "Oh, well, I might not be right about this, but here's what I think." And it just sort of dumbs down the message that you're trying to share. So really just be authentic, keep it real, say what there is for you to say, and keep it simple. This is kind of a cool story from the book Lean In. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend. But it's about Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. I'm sure you've heard of that
Oh my
guy.
God, he's giving away a bunch of free stuff on Facebook right now.
And tons of money. So everybody get ready.
Marky Mark.
But in his free time, I don't know where he has free time, but apparently he does, and he decided he was going to learn Chinese. And one of the ways that he was going to practice this new skill is by sitting down and having weekly meetings with some of his Facebook employees who were native Chinese speakers. But they're all busy, so he said, we're going to actually talk about business. We're going to move Facebook forward, but we're going to do it in Chinese because I want to practice. And she talks about in this one meeting where one of the employees was trying to explain to him something about work and he wasn't getting it and he said, "Could you make it simpler for me?" Now, mind you, all of this is happening in Chinese. And she made it simpler and he still didn't get it. And this happened a few times and she started to really get frustrated and finally she just blurted out, "My manager is terrible." And he finally got that and he was able to then put some, measures in place, work with that person, make some changes ultimately to make an improvement in the organization. The whole point of this story is, sometimes it's more effective to just be really, really simple. Some of those extra details aren't necessary.
The next one is to be inspired. The power of passionate communication to really inspire others. But the first thing is you have to be inspired. So, inspiration is channeled through bold and heartfelt communication that really expresses your highest standards and convictions. And the last one is to be firm but warm. Every message you send is amplified 10 times to your team members, whether you intend to do it or not. Saying something a little wrong to them, they hear it as a major mess up. So start with the assumption that the same words will have a different impact if you're their boss versus their peer. And it's important that we can be relatable to our team. And we want to share where we're coming from in that place of vulnerability, but at the same time, you don't want to be their mom. So you don't really want to overshare. There's this dance, right? Between being relatable, but yet, not becoming your team's mom. I found some really cool stats I thought you guys would like because there might be somebody on this webinar that has a remote team like myself. So, the Center for Creative Leadership asked 247 senior executives around the globe about 10 trends in the business. And the question became, what can be done to train leaders for a virtual world, and what skills will they need to be effective in the future? So, these execs were surveyed, and the communication dominated with over 70% of the responses. The most frequently cited communication skills, clarity, and how effective we are with delivering our message. I thought this was pretty cool because it really seemed like to me that this is like where so many places, I know salons and spas, like we're all going to be shampooing hair in the brick and mortars, but there's a lot of companies that are moving towards this.
All right, so we're up to our third big tip and our third key for breakthrough leadership, and that is delegation. Starting to think about, what if you manage your time as if it were your money? I imagine that you would start doing some things differently. Maybe you'd even take some things out of your schedule altogether.
Hey, Erin, I'm sorry before you get started. You know what? I'm supposed to be like helping you out here, girl, and I got a hand raised from Christina. I'm
Oh,
going to
what's up?
unmute you, Christina. Are you there, Christina? Christina. Christina raised her hand. I put you're off of mute, so I'm wondering. All right. So, Christina, if you have a question, you can also raise your hand again, and you can put your question down in your little question box. All right. Go ahead, Miss Erin.
Yeah. So ultimately, delegation is one of those tools that, as a manager, is going to save you a lot of time and also hopefully a lot of money. But so what we were talking about is if you manage your time as if it were your money, what would you be doing differently? I used to work for a CEO who signed everybody's paychecks by hand. That's one of those things, that we're talking probably 300 to 500 checks a month. That's a lot. And definitely one of those things that maybe if you were managing your time as if it were your money, you wouldn't be doing some of those repetitive tasks like that. So spend some time thinking about this as we move throughout this section. What would change for you? Okay, so delegation is not telling people what to do or dishing out tasks, but really it means assigning projects, but also providing the authority, the direction, the resources, and the support to have your team succeed. You really don't want to end up this king or queen of your castle, but doing mindless, time-sucking tasks. Ultimately, the success of your team and your business, but also your well-being as a leader really depends on delegating some of your authority.
Erin, sometimes I feel like that dude painting the street.
Yeah,
Like I feel like that person.
we all do though, right? We all find ourselves doing things that
Thank you.
You look back, you're like, what am I doing? Really?
Right.
All right, so one of the key reasons that people delegate is to save time. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, "Oh no, it is so much faster for me to do these things by myself. It's going to take so much time to teach somebody else, and then, they're not even going to do it as well as I do, so it's a big waste of time." But really, this is well, first of all, I hear you. I've been there. I totally get it. But that's also one of the ways that we sabotage ourselves as leaders by thinking that it's going to take too much time, so it's just easier if we keep doing everything ourselves. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper in our 2-day event because this is a big conversation for a lot of leaders. But we'll start to discover on an individual basis, what do you do to sabotage yourself? And what is that story that you tell yourself about delegating or why you can't delegate tasks? So start thinking about that now. I'm sure there's a way that you convince yourself, that you're the only one that could be doing those repetitive month-end procedures or, signing of the checks. So I'd love for you guys to share in the chat or in the question area, what are 3 things that you do right now on a regular basis that really could be handled by somebody else? This is one of those areas where you can go back to your company today or tomorrow and really apply this. Start taking some of these things off your plate. So what are those 3 things that you're doing that could be handed off to someone else? And also start thinking about, if there are tasks that really are your responsibility, how could you save some time? Could you get some help on parts of it? Or could it be systematized in some way? What are the opportunities? And really consider the value of your time here. Ultimately, we want you to be getting the biggest bang for your buck for the time that you're spending in your company.
Yeah, Erin, I love what you are saying here. I have a client and she was working the front desk, and I was like, okay, girlfriend, your hourly rate behind the chair is what? She's like, about $125. I'm like, okay. So I need to replace you with somebody at $8.25 an hour for your front desk. It's like
Right.
looking at this, where are we spending our time? You guys are such a high value to these organization. What's going to make the biggest impact? Is it working the front desk at $8.25 an hour when I can have you behind the chair making $125 an hour? So really look at this and really consider, what are the things that you can totally take off of your plate to free you up for your higher value dollar jobs?
Nobody is sharing. Everybody must think that they have
I
to
know.
keep all their tasks.
Well, I know a couple of them on here, can share a little bit. Well, maybe call on you guys.
Well, in case you're not totally
Oh,
sold
we've
on
got
the
one.
value,
Inventory count. I love that one. Yes, you guys. If I have the people, my owners on here that are doing their inventory count, thanks for sharing that. And you are double right on that. So, who else can take on? Who can you train? What's a system you can put in place? Because you guys know I love my systems. What's a system missing in your business that has you not delegating these things out, right? So for you, it's like, what's a system you need to put in place and who can you train to do that work?
we've got another comment too, the front desk.
Oh,
Got
nice.
folks working on the front desk still.
We got some front desk. Oh, yeah, girl, the front desk, faux show, right? There's that place where us as owners, we just get ourselves stuck. I fired myself from the front desk. I absolutely fired myself. One day, I called a customer to get them rescheduled, and she answered the phone because she was at my shampoo bowl area. I was like, it's official. I'm done. I'm done. This is not the job for me anymore. I used to shine at my front desk, but there's somebody that can do it so much better now. I'll go be the big visionary.
Mhm. Well, isn't that kind of an interesting awareness for you to have that, you thought you were good at it, but actually somebody could be better than you at it.
Oh, yes.
That's a total opportunity in our organizations.
Hmm.
Nice. Well, keep sharing if you guys come up with some ideas, but ultimately the other big perk of delegating is this is a great opportunity for you to start really developing that next generation of leaders. Some of the keys to making delegation and development opportunity is to assign people tasks in your organization that are aligned with where they need to grow or where they want to grow. So for instance, if you know you've got somebody in your organization that really wants to own their salon, or, own their own salon at some point, or maybe own yours, I don't know.
They can own mine. That's fine.
Yeah. They, maybe they need to start learning some of the management side of it. And that's a great opportunity for you to get some things off of your plate, but also make it a learning opportunity for them. Um, it does require putting some intention and putting some thought into it and really trusting your team members ultimately, but I promise you it will pay off. And we do know too that this is easier said than done. It's cool for us to sit here and say, go delegate all your tasks, but in the real world, that's much easier said than done. So if you join us for our 2-day program, one of the things you'll get is some step-by-step guides to how to delegate tasks, how to have those conversations with people, and then also how to be more effective at that and ultimately save you lots of time and money and develop your team all at the same time.
All right, everybody. Can you believe it? We're here at the very end of our webinar. I'm so excited, but I want to open up. What questions do you guys have for us? Is there anything that's really kind of popped up for you? I can raise your hand. I'll unmute you. We're just really at this place of the Q&A. What questions do you have about leadership, or what was something that kind of stuck out for you that you've noticed that you've gotten stuck on? I'm going to move through a couple more of these slides. So as your hands pop up, I'll just kind of call on you. And if you guys have any more questions, because we do have an opportunity where you can also schedule some time with us. So I know we kind of talked a little bit about the power of your leadership, and I'm sure if all you guys on the call have heard it once or 500 times on all my emails and social media. But we have this wonderful 2-day program on really, how did I become an owner and then be able to step away? It's because I really did bring up people inside my organization into leadership positions, but it required me to train and develop them. And this is where I see the bottleneck happening inside organizations is owners don't know how to manage, how to train their managers to be better managers. So the informals and the formals need to be at this 2-day training. So looking at, we're in January. It's in San Diego, the 21st and 22nd. We are at a resort that is to die for. It's at the Kona Kai and is absolutely beautiful. This is a one-time rate we have going on for just $497. After this event, it's actually going to go up. So if you guys are wanting leadership or leadership training and really how to lead your team effectively, how to inspire them, how to motivate your team, how to improve your own time management, and how to really grow from a personal, professional, this is a place to find yourself. How can you delegate that actually works and has you being able to step away from your business and maybe just go on vacation? And also learning how to supercharge your business. So those of you guys that are really looking for this, this time away to really work on your leadership, it's not necessarily the systems, right? That's what we do at our university. This is going to be geared all towards how to grow your leadership to get the most out of your team and your time. So those that are interested, just give us a call. And we also have a website, powerupyourleadership.com. We also have today, we're offering a 30-minute leadership coaching call to really get you re-energized and refocused on your job. And maybe you have some informal leaders that you want to have, doing this work. And maybe it's a good call for them to have so they can see the impact and we can show them inside of our coaching how they make a huge impact in these organizations and how they show up into your organization is huge, right? So if you guys are, either one of you guys are, if anybody's interested, you can just go to either one of these websites, which Erin will put these into the chat box. Did you just do that?
Yeah, I just put our links into the chat box so you can click directly and schedule with either one of us. We'd both love to talk to you and help you implement some of this information from today.
Absolutely. Or if you have somebody that can really benefit from that time, have them schedule themselves and just tell them that you guys were on this webinar today. So we have, that's coming from you. And again, if you guys would like to, here's my contact information, and you can also email me. And oh, I just zoomed right past me. I'm like, see you guys. So you can call me at 812-455-1367 or email me at amy@empoweringyourconsulting.com. And we also have contact information for Erin, and her number is 858-245-6290, or you can email her at erindaberlifecoach.com. And really, I just want, for me personally, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. That, the one area, that you want to work on and grow and develop is really inside of your leadership, growing you so we can grow your team and grow your business and ultimately really your profits. Any last words, Miss Erin?
Yeah, I guess as long as there's no questions. I mean, yeah, oh, we have a question actually. Sorry, it was hidden. Um, Adriana asked, do you feel an entire leadership team needs to be at this training? What do you think, Amy?
Oh my God, if I can get my whole salon here, I would just finish up with spin class this morning. I'm like, okay, how can I get all my informal and formal leaders to this 2-day event in San Diego so they can hear it, right? I would say the more you guys can train and develop as a team, then the more the impact is going to be showing. So if you have people that can really use some management growth and development, and maybe you have, your service providers that are really going in the ranks and are wanting to grow and develop your team, I would say absolutely yes. And it's such at a reasonable rate that, we made it affordable so that you guys can really bring, as many people as possible into it. It only requires a deposit of 250 down, and then we can work with you on a payment plan if you're bringing multiple people. So we can definitely do that. But it's a juicy conversation for 2 days on leadership. We really look at how we show up into our organizations, and we really work on really all the different areas inside of it. So it's pretty cool. Hope that answers for you guys. Hope that answers. Oh, Darla. Yes, my love. I'll put my email up again since I just zoomed past my slides. It's amy@empoweringyourconsulting.com. You can also call me or text me. I'll be free later on in a couple hours. And that link to my calendar, you guys can book your little 30-minute calls with either Erin or I. So you can just book yourself right into my calendar. It feels a little strange, but I kind of like it. All right, guys. Well, I just want to, last but not least, again, just say thank you so much for being here. This is probably one of the coolest conversations I get to have is how can I grow and develop my owners and my leaders in these organizations?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all for joining us, and let us know if you have questions that come up after this. Feel free to email either one of us, and we hope to see you at Power Up Your Leadership in January.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.